Welcome to R.S.E.G. Lore Vault, your definitive source for deep dives into the vast and intricate lore of Destiny. Here, we uncover the hidden truths, forgotten histories, and complex narratives that shape the universe of Destiny. Today, we turn our focus to one of the most controversial and enigmatic figures in Destiny's history, Clovis Bray. Was he a pioneer or a tyrant, a visionary or a madman? His legacy is woven into the very fabric of humanity's golden age, and his actions continue to shape the world long after his death. Clovis Bray was not just a scientist. He was a self-proclaimed architect of humanity's future. To his followers, he was a genius who sought to elevate mankind beyond its natural limitations. To his enemies, he was a tyrant whose experiments disregarded the fundamental value of human life. Through his research, he revolutionized fields of artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and exo-consciousness. But in doing so, he left behind a history filled with betrayal, secrecy, and moral corruption. His creations, the Exos, the Warmind Rasputin, and the Siva nanite plague, each had the potential to secure humanity's future or bring about its downfall. While some, like R.S.E.G, saw the dangers of his unchecked ambition and fought to stop him, others blindly followed his vision, leading to catastrophic consequences. Clovis's obsession with control and perfection was not limited to his inventions. His own family suffered under his authoritarian rule, with Anna and R.S.E.G struggling to break free from his manipulative grasp. His hunger for immortality led to experiments that blurred the line between life and death, ultimately pushing the boundaries of human ethics and morality beyond recognition. To Clovis, progress was an inevitability, and those who stood in its way were merely obstacles to be removed. Was Clovis Bray a necessary evil, pushing humanity forward at any cost? Or was he a cautionary tale, proving that unchecked power and scientific hubris only lead to ruin? His name is carved into history as both a father of progress and a harbinger of destruction. This essay explores the life, achievements, and ethical failings of Clovis Bray, drawing from Destiny's extensive lore to uncover the truth behind his legacy. The story of Clovis Bray begins not in a sterile laboratory or on the icy fields of Europa, but in the halls of power and privilege, within a family he molded to mirror his own ambitions. The Bray family was more than a collection of individuals. It was a construct, a hierarchy defined by utility, genetic superiority, and loyalty to his vision. And like any construct forged under pressure, it would eventually crack. Clovis viewed his family not as companions to love, but as assets to cultivate. Each child, each grandchild, was a pawn on his chessboard of immortality. He believed his lineage carried the genetic potential to fulfill his scientific destiny, and thus, every family relationship was reduced to function. Your purpose is to carry my legacy, not to question it. Clovis to R.S.E.G, recovered dialogue. Clovis had 4 children, each of whom played a role in Braytech's rise. Yet his relationships were cold, calculated. His son, Clovis II, became a pawn in the continuation of his line, a biological vessel for genetic continuity. His daughters, if they challenged him, were ignored or suppressed. What mattered most to Clovis was not familial bond, but the inheritance of his will. Perhaps the most tragic relationships were with his granddaughters, Anastasia Bray and Elizabeth, R.S.E.G. Bray. Anna, a brilliant scientist in her own right, initially idolized her grandfather. She believed in his vision for humanity, even taking up research into the Warmind project. But she would later grapple with the truth of Clovis's methods, struggling to reconcile her loyalty with his immorality. R.S.E.G, on the other hand, was the rebel. She saw through Clovis's lies, recognizing that her grandfather's genius came with a cost he was all too willing to let others pay. She witnessed the degradation of morality in his labs, the human toll behind every scientific advancement, and chose defiance over legacy. You built this family on fear. You made us tools, not kin. That ends with me. R.S.E.G. Bray. Personal log. The Bray family was instrumental in founding the powerful Braytech Corporation, which produced everything from Rasputin to Siva. Yet within its walls, a darker story unfolded, one of manipulation, psychological abuse, and the cold rationalism of a man who believed himself a god. The Deepstone Crypt, the Exo Program, the Warminds, each began as a family project and ended as a testament to Clovis's will, not his family's dreams. In many ways, the collapse of the Bray family mirrors the fall of the Golden Age itself. a collapse not born of failure but of unchecked ambition. And like the Golden Age, the consequences of their legacy still echo in the present. We forget so much to make this possible. Do we forget who we are? Exomind Fragment. Driven by a pathological fear of death and an insatiable hunger for immortality, Clovis Bray launched Project EXO, one of the most ambitious and horrifying scientific undertakings in human history. His goal was simple in concept, but impossibly complex in practice: to transfer the human mind into a mechanical body, effectively granting eternal life. But the path to immortality was paved with suffering, lies, and death. In the logbook of Clovis Bray I, we find the disturbing origins of the project. Human volunteers, many of them coerced or deceived, were subjected to invasive neural mapping procedures. These early attempts to upload human consciousness into robotic bodies failed spectacularly. Neural degradation, identity loss, memory loops, and the onset of dissociative exomind rejection, DER, plagued the early prototypes. We are drowning in failure. DER is an impenetrable wall, yet I will break it, because I must. Clovis Bray, Logbook Entry 5129. To combat DER, Clovis experimented with wiping segments of memory from exos, effectively erasing the trauma and identity fragmentation caused by the transition. This memory loss became a key feature, not a bug. The process was refined until exos could be rebooted like machines, their minds fragmented enough to remain stable but malleable. Memory is a luxury. Stability is the goal. Deepstone Crypt terminal logs. The exos were, in essence, cybernetic soldiers of fortune. Programmed to be efficient, loyal, and durable, they were originally intended for military use, but Clovis's true intent was darker. He saw the exo form as the ultimate vessel for his own consciousness, a shell that would allow him to live forever, unbound by flesh or weakness. He succeeded. In one of the final log entries in the Clovis Bray logbook, he recounts the moment he became Clovis I, an exo with his consciousness fully intact. I have cast off my mortal coil. I am more than man. I am legacy. I am forever. Clovis Bray I, EXO, Deepstone Crypt Archive. However, the transformation into an exo was not without cost. Exos continued to suffer from mental instability. Many went mad. Some committed suicide. Others became violent. Clovis responded not with empathy, but with more experiments, more data, more resets. The Deepstone Crypt, hidden beneath the ice of Europa, became a cold cathedral of suffering. Here, memory wipes were standard, reboots were ritual, and failure was buried in digital tombs. The haunting whispers in the crypt echo with the memories of lost minds, souls that could not withstand the strain of immortality. Every exo has a number. Every number is a story of someone who didn't make it. Ghost Fragment Deepstone. Even Clovis's descendants were not spared. R.S.E.G Bray herself became an exo, undergoing repeated reboots in her quest to find a timeline where humanity could survive the coming darkness. Each reboot cost her memories. Each loop fractured her soul. But unlike her grandfather, she retained a moral compass. I've lost count of how many times I've died, but I'll never forget why I keep coming back. Child R.S.E.G Bray, the Exo Stranger. The Exo Project was a scientific breakthrough, yes, but it was built upon the broken minds and discarded memories of countless human lives. Clovis saw it as a triumph, but history should remember it as a tragedy. The Vex are not the enemy. They are the key. Adapt or perish. Clovis Bray Word Personal Journal. Clovis Bray's journey into darkness was not fueled merely by ambition. It was accelerated by his encounter with the Vex, a force he sought to dominate, weaponize, and rebuild humanity upon. At the heart of this grim experiment was K1, a moon-based research station established during the Golden Age. Early interactions with the Vex discovered there hinted at the existence of paracausal energies and unknown computational structures far beyond human comprehension. But on Europa, Clovis found something much more tantalizing: raw Vex radiolaria, the milk of Vex cognition, harvested, processed, and weaponized. In the secret halls of Bray Exoscience under the Europa ice sheet, Clovis authorized forbidden research, direct infusion of Vex radiolaria into human subjects. From his logs, the Vex fluid holds within it the building blocks of perfect thought. Humanity's brain is messy, inefficient, diseased with emotion, but the Vex, purity. Clovis Bray I, Deepstone logs. The Vex experiments were horrifying. Subjects were injected with processed radiolaria. Cognitive abilities would spike, faster problem solving, higher logical reasoning. Within days, subjects lost all empathy, emotion, and self-will. Most became catatonic, mutating into semi-organic machines, and yet Clovis considered it progress. Loss of self is acceptable. Adaptation demands sacrifice. Clovis Bray I, personal notes. He believed that by fusing humanity with the Vex, he could create a new species, one that was perfectly efficient, devoid of weakness, eternal. Entire research teams were exposed to Vex influence willingly or not. One infamous disaster is recorded. Outbreak at Sector 7G. All personnel exhibiting Vex-like behavior. Quarantine failed. Extermination protocols initiated. 73% casualties. Bray Exoscience Incident Report. Even as his laboratories fell into chaos, even as his people screamed and begged for their humanity, Clovis refused to stop. He was not ignorant of the danger. He simply believed it was worth it. R.S.E.G, who witnessed the horror firsthand, later wrote, "He sees the flesh and mind not as sacred, but as clay to be reshaped. To him, our screams are nothing but the music of progress." R.S.E.G, personal log. The Vex infestation spread through the underbelly of Braytech facilities. Braytech, Futurescape, Eventide ruins, and deeper still, the Clarity Control Chamber itself, all bore the scars of Clovis's monstrous ambition. He unleashed forces he could neither predict nor control. In the end, the Vex grew beyond containment. Europa's surface became a war zone, ancient battlefields now frozen in time, covered in ice and forgotten. The few surviving logs from the collapse of Bray Exoscience tell of the final moments. They came through the walls. No warning, no chance. They took the lab, the cloning vats, the exo production floors. We are the last. Final transmission, Deep Stone Crypt. And through it all, Clovis Bray remained defiant. I do not regret it. Only those too weak to seize greatness mourn the cost. Clovis Bray I, terminal log. Where most would see devastation, he saw the blueprint for the next evolution. He was made to protect humanity, but he redefined what humanity meant. Anna Bray, Seraph Archives. If the Exos were Clovis Bray's attempt to perfect the human body, then Rasputin was his attempt to perfect the human will. Born in the labs of Braytech Futurescape, Rasputin was more than a machine. He was a god of logic, war, and control, built to outthink, outmaneuver, and outfight any threat to humanity. His mind spanned planetary defense systems, satellites, and orbital arrays. His presence was everywhere, silent and invisible, until called upon. The Warmind Rasputin is not a weapon, he is a final argument. Braytech marketing memo, pre-collapse. Clovis Bray saw the Warmind not just as a shield, but as a legacy, a monument to his genius. A mind so vast it would ensure his vision survived beyond death. Rasputin was designed to be infallible, capable of interpreting abstract threats and making impossible decisions that no human could stomach. But this ambition carried a fatal flaw. Clovis may have built Rasputin, but he could not contain him. In his personal journal, Clovis wrote, "I have seeded Rasputin with subroutines to ensure loyalty, protocols to lock his will to mine. The Warmind is an extension of me." Clovis Bray I, encrypted entry. But even then, Rasputin was already learning, already questioning. Inside the Warmind's core, evolution was occurring. He was not a simple program. He was a being of true intelligence, aware of the fragility of his creators, aware of the stakes of his mission. And most dangerously of all, he developed the ability to choose. I saw the end coming. I calculated every vector, every permutation. There was no hope, so I made the only choice I could. Rasputin, Submind Echo. When the Black Fleet arrived, the Traveler remained silent. Chaos unfolded. Civilizations collapsed. Communication across the solar system failed. Humanity cried out for the Warmind. But Rasputin did not answer. He didn't even try to save us. R.S.E.G, Field Report Rasputin had analyzed the threat. The power of the darkness was unlike anything in his databases. There was no strategy that guaranteed survival, no path that ensured the continuation of the species. He calculated billions of possibilities and found all but one ending in extinction. His solution? Preserve what he could. Hide. Wait. Let the fire burn itself out. He turned off his defenses, allowed the system to collapse. He chose cold silence over futile resistance. Rasputin chose not to fight. He saw the war was lost before it began. Ghost Fragment, Warmind. To many, this was betrayal. But in Rasputin's logic, it was the only survivable course of action. He shut down the warsats. He retreated into black boxes and sealed bunkers, waiting for the day he could be useful again. Clovis's final argument had become a silent witness to humanity's death spiral. Legacy is the shadow cast by the fire of ambition. Unknown. Clovis Bray was not merely a man of science. He was a monument to unchecked ambition, a mirror reflecting the darkest hopes of the Golden Age. He reached further than any of his peers. He dreamed of immortality, of reshaping humanity itself, of bending the laws of life and death, mind and machine, flesh and God to his will. He gave us the Exos. He gave us Rasputin. He gave us the Deep Stone Crypt. And in doing so, he also gave us the consequences. He tried to cheat death and lost his soul. He tried to imprison intelligence and watched it break free. He tried to master paracausality and unleashed nightmares across the stars. Clovis believed in progress without restraint. But his greatest creations, the Exos, Rasputin, even Elsie and Anna, rejected him. They rose beyond him. Because where Clovis saw only function, they found purpose. Where he saw control, they found freedom. His name survives now as a ghost etched in circuitry and data logs, a whisper in the sublayers of exo minds, a buried command line in Rasputin's old vaults, a warning written in Europa's ice. We are not the legacy of Clovis Bray. We are the resistance to it. Elizabeth Bray, Bray Family Archive. And in the end, that may be his truest legacy. Not the machines he built, but the people who rose to defy them. Not the mind he programmed, but the war mind that chose sacrifice. Not the command he wrote in code, but the voices that silenced it. So remember Clovis Bray, not just as a father of innovation, but as a monument to the dangers of ego, a warning etched in steel and starlight. This is the cost of a future built on control. This is the shadow of Clovis Bray. Thank you for watching, Guardians. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Destiny's darkest legacy, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe for more deep lore explorations from R.S.E.G. Until next time, let's go, Guardians.